Hello Mark, my name is Joy Extension and my student number is S04411015 and I'm a junior from the Department of English. And the speech title is How a Handful of Tech Companies Control Billions of Minds Every Day. And the speaker is Tristan Harris. I want you to imagine walking into a room. A control room with a bunch of people, 100 people, hunched over a desk with little dials, and that the control room will shape the thought and feeling of a billion people. This might sound like science fiction, but this actually exists right now, today. I know because I used to be in one of those control rooms. I was a design ethicist and Google, where I study how do you ethically steer people's thought. Because what we don't talk about is how the handful of people working in a handful of technology companies, through their choice, will stir what a billion people are thinking today. Because when you pull out of your phone and they decide how this works and what's on the feed, it's scheduling little blocks of time in our mind. If you see a notification, it schedules you to have thought that maybe you didn't intend to have. If you swipe over the notification, it schedules you into spending a little bit of time getting sucked into something that maybe you didn't intend to get sucked into. When we talk about technology, we intend to talk about it as the blue sky opportunity. It could go any direction, and I want to get serious for a moment and tell you why it's going in a very specific direction, because it's not evolving randomly. There's a hidden goal driving the direction of all the technology we make. And that goal is the race for our attention, because every news site, TED, election, politician, games, even meditation app have to compete for one thing, which is our attention, and there's only so much of it. And the best way to get people's attention is to know how someone's mind works, and there is a whole bunch of persuasive technique that I learned in college and a lab called the Persuasive Technology Lab to get people's attention. A simple example is YouTube. YouTube wants to maximize how much time you spend, and what do? They autoplay the next video, and they say that works really well. They are getting a little bit more people's time. Well, if you are Netflix, you look at that and say, well, that's shrinking my market share, so I'm going to autoplay the next episode. But then if you are Facebook, you say, that's shrinking all of my market share, so now I have to autoplay all the video in the news feed before waiting for you to click play. So the internet is not evolving at random. The reason it feels like it's sucking us in a way, it is because of this race for attention. We know where this is going. Technology is not neutral, and it becomes this race to the bottom of the bandstand who can go lower to get it. Let me give you an example of Snapchat. If you didn't know, Snapchat is the #1 way that teenagers in the United States communicate. So if you are like me and you use text messages to communicate, Snapchat is that for teenagers, and there's like 100 million of them that use it. And they invented a feature called Snapchat, which shows the number of days in a row that two people have communicated with each other. In other words, What they just did is they gave two people something they don't want to lose. Because if you are a teenager and you have 150 days in a row, you don't want that to go away. And so think of the little blocks of time that the schedule in kids' mind. This isn't theoretical. When kids go on vacation, it has been shown that give their password to up to 500 friends to keep their Snapchat going, even when they can't do it. And they have like 30 of these things, so they have to get through taking photos of just picture of work or selling just to get through their day. So it's not even like they are having real conversation. We have a temptation to think about this as, oh, they are just using Snapchat the way we used to gossip on the telephone. It's probably okay. Well, what this misses is that in the 1970s, when you just gossiping on the telephone, there wasn't 100 engineer on the other side of the screen who knew exactly how your psychology worked and orchestra you into a double bind with each other. Now, if Lee is making you feel a little bit of outrage, notice that they don't just comes over you. Outrage is a really good way to also of getting your attention because we don't choose outrage. It happens to me. And if you are the Facebook newsfeed, whether you want to or not, you actually benefit when there's outrage. Because outrage doesn't just schedule a reaction in emotional time, space for you. We want to share that outrage with other people, so we don't want to hit share and say, can you believe the thing that they say? And so outrage work really well at getting attention, such that if Facebook had a choice between showing you the outrage feed and account news feed, they would want to show you the outrage feed. Not because someone consciously chose that, but because they were better at getting your attention. So the newsfeed control room is not accountable to us. It's only accountable to maximizing attention. It's also accountable because of the business model of advertising. For anybody who can pay the most to actually walk into a control room and say, that girl over there, I want to schedule this thought into their mind. So you can target, you can precisely target a line directly to get to the people who are most susceptible. And because this is profitable, it's only going to get worse. So I'm here today because the causes are so obvious. I don't know a more urgent problem than this, because this problem is underneath all other problems. It's not just taking away our agency to spend our attention and live their life that we want. It's changing the way that we have our conversation. It's changing our democracy, and it's changing our ability to have the conversation and relationship we want with each other. And it affects everyone, because a billion people have one of these in their pocket. So how do we fix this? We need to make three radical changes to technology and to our society. The first is we need to acknowledge that we are persuadable. Once you start understanding that your mind can be scheduled into having little thoughts or little blocks of time that you didn't choose, wouldn't we want to use that understanding and protect against the way that happen? I think we need to see ourselves fundamentally in a new way. It's almost like a new period of human history, like enlightenment, but almost a kind of self-aware enlightenment that we can be persuaded, and there might be something we want to protect. The second is we need new models and accountability systems so that as the world gets better and more persuasive over time, because it's only going to get more persuasive. And the people in those control rooms are accountable and transparent to what we want. The only form of ethical persuasion that exists is when the goals of the persuader are aligned with the goal of the persuaded, and that involves questioning big things, like the business model of advertising. Lastly, we need a design renaissance, because once you have the view of human nature that you can stir the timeline of a billion people, just imagine. There's people who have some desire about what they want to do and what they want to be thinking and what they want to be feeling and how they want to be informed. And we are all tucked into this other direction. And you have a billion people just tucked into all these different directions. Well, imagine an entire design renaissance that try to orchestrate the exact and most empowering time well spent way for those timelines to happen. And that would involve two things. One would be protecting against the timeline that we don't want to be experienced. The thought that we don't want to be happening, so that when that thing happens, not having the thing that sent us away. And the second would be empowering us to live out the timeline that we want. So let me give you a concrete example. Today, let's say our friend cancel the dinner on you, and you are feeling a little bit lonely. So what do you do in that moment? You open up Facebook, and in that moment, the designer in the control room wants to schedule exactly one thing, which is to maximize how much time you spend on the screen. Now instead, imagine if those designers created a different time that was the easiest way, using all of their data to actually help you get off with the people that you care about. Just think, alleviating all loneliness in society. If there was the timeline that Facebook wanted to make possible for people, or imagine a different conversation. Let's say you want to post something super controversial on Facebook, which is a really important thing to be able to do, to talk about controversial topic. And right now, when there's that big comment box, it's almost asking you, what key do you want to type? In other words, it's scheduling a little timeline of things you are going to continue to do on the screen. And imagine instead that there was another button there saying, what would be most time well spent for you? And you click host a dinner, and right there underneath the item it says, who wants to RSVP for the dinner? And you still have a conversation about something controversial, but you have having it in the most empowering place on your timeline, which would be at home that night with a bunch of friends over to talk about it. So imagine we are running that to find and replace on all of the time that are currently steering us towards more and more screen time persuasively, and replacing all of those timelines with what do we want in our life. It doesn't have to be this way. Instead of handicapping our attention, imagine if we use all of this data and all of this power and this new view of human nature to give us a superhuman ability to focus and a superhuman ability to put our attention to what we care about, and a superhuman ability to have the conversation that we need to have for democracy. The most complex challenges in the world require not just us to use our attention individually. They require us to use our attention and coordinate it together. Climate change is going to require that a lot of people are being able to coordinate their attention in the most empowering way together. And imagine creating a superhuman ability to do that. Sometimes the world's most pressing and important problems are not these hypothetical future things that we could create in the future. Sometimes the most pressing problems are the ones that are right underneath of noise. The thing that we are already directing a billion people's thought, and maybe instead of getting excited about the new argument, reality and virtual reality and these cool things that could happen, which are going to be susceptible to the same race for attention. If we could fix the race for attention on a thing that's already in a billion people's pocket, maybe instead of getting excited about the most exciting, new, cool, fancy education app, we could fix the way kids' minds are getting manipulated into sending empty messages back and forth. Applause. Maybe instead of worrying about hypothetical future runway, artificial intelligence that are maximizing for one goal, we could solve the runway artificial intelligence that already exists right now, which are these new speeds maximizing for one thing. It's almost like instead of running away to colonize new planet, we could fix the one that we already on. Applause. Solving this problem is critical infrastructure for solving every other problem. There's nothing in your life, in our collective problem, that does not require our ability to put our attention where we care about. At the end of our life, all we have is our attention and our time. What will be time well spent for us, for ours? Thank you. Applause. Chris Anderson. Tristan, thank you. Hey, stay here a second. First of all, thank you. I know you will ask you to do this till on pretty short notice. You have had a quite stressful week getting this thing together, so thank you. Some people listening might say, what you complain about is addiction. And all these people doing this stuff, for them it's actually interesting. All these design decisions have built the user content that is fantastically interesting. The world's more interesting than it ever has been. What's wrong with that? Tristan Harris. I think it's really interesting. One way to see this is if you are just YouTube, for example, you want to always show the more interesting next video. You want to get better and better at suggesting that next video. But even if you could propose the perfect next video that everyone would want to watch, it could be just better and better and keeping you hooked on the screen. So what's missing in that equation is figuring out what our boundary would be. You would want YouTube to know something about, say, falling asleep. The CEO of Netflix recently said, our biggest competitor are Facebook, YouTube, and sleep. And so what we need to recognize is that the human architecture is limiting, and while we have certain boundaries are dimensions of our life that we want to be honored and respected, and technology could help do that. Applause. CA. I mean, could you make the case that part of the problem here is that we got a naive model of human nature? So much of this is justified in terms of human preference, where we got this algorithm that do an amazing job of optimizing for human preference. But which preference? There's a preference of things that we really care about. When we think about them versus the presence of what we just instinctively click on. If we could implant that more nuanced view of human nature in every design, would that be a step forward? forward. Absolutely. I think right now is if all of our technology is basically only asking our laser brain, what's the best way to just impulsively get you to do the next tiniest thing with your time? Instead of asking your life what when would be most time well spent for you, what would be the perfect time that might include something later, would be the time well spent for you at that in your last day here? CA. So if Facebook and Google are and everyone said to us first up, hey, would you like us to optimize for your reflective brain on or your laser brain? You choose. Right? That would be one way. Yes. CA. You said persuadability. That's an interesting word to me because to me there's two different types of persuadability. There's a persuadability that when trying to right now of reason and thinking and making an argument. But I think you are almost talking about a different kind, a more visceral type of persuadability, of being persuaded without even knowing that you are thinking. Exactly. The reason I care about this problem so much is I studied in a lab called the Persuasive Technology Lab at Stanford that taught students how to recognize exactly this technique. There's conferences and workshops that teach people all these clever ways of getting people's attention and orchestrating people's life. And it's because most people don't know that this conversation is so important. See, Tristan, you and we both know so many people from all these companies. There are actually many here in the room. I don't know about you, but my experience of them is that there is no shortage of good intent. People want a better world. They really want it. And I don't think anything you are saying is that these are evil people. It's a system where there's these unintended consequences that have really get out of our control. Of this race for attention is a classic race to the bottom when you have to get attention, and it's so tense. The only way to get more is to go lower on the brain stem, to go lower into outrage, to go lower into emotion, to go lower into the laser brain. CA. Well, thank you for helping us and all get a little bit wiser about this. Tristan Harry, thank you. Tristan Harry, thank you very much. Applause.